Am I the bad guy for asking my husband to limit his time with his nephews because our daughters are missing out? I recently found myself in a bit of a dilemma regarding family dynamics, and I wanted to share my experience to see if I was in the wrong. My husband and I have two lovely daughters, aged 6 and 8. We live just a couple of blocks away from my sister-in-law and her family, who have two energetic 9-year-old boys. Their father is often away due to his military duties, which means the boys frequently come over to our house to spend time with us. Now, don't get me wrong. The boys are great kids, respectful and full of energy. When they're here, my husband loves taking them to the park to play soccer, and they always seem to have a fantastic time. My sister-in-law is grateful for the time they get to spend with their uncle, and I appreciate that too. However, there's a catch. When the boys are around, my daughters often choose not to join in on the fun. They'd express to me that they don't enjoy the competitive nature of the games when it's all four of them together. Instead, they prefer the quieter, more relaxed playtime they have with their dad when it's just the three of them. I've tried taking the girls to the park by myself, but they don't seem to enjoy it as much without their dad. It's clear that they look forward to those special moments with him, and I can't help but feel that they're missing out when the boys come over. So, I decided to bring this up with my husband. I suggested that he talk to his sister about possibly limiting the days when the boys come over, especially since our daughters enjoy their time with him so much more when it's just the three of them. To my surprise, my husband was taken aback by my suggestion. He argued that the boys are good kids and that it would be unfair to limit their time together, especially since their father is away so often. I explained that I wasn't saying the boys were bad. I was just concerned that our daughters felt like they were missing out on quality time with their dad. He insisted that he would encourage the boys to be less competitive and make sure everyone had fun. But I knew from experience that it wasn't that simple. I felt a bit defeated when he suggested that telling his nephews about my concerns would be cruel. It made me question if I was being unreasonable. After all, I want to support my husband and his relationship with his nephews, but I also want to ensure that our daughters have their special moments with him. As I reflected on the situation, I began to wonder if there was a middle ground. Some commenters on my original post suggested that we could find activities that everyone could enjoy together, where perhaps I could take the boys to the park on days when my husband was busy, allowing him to have dedicated time with our daughters. I thought this was a great idea and decided to explore it further. I also considered how much time my husband was spending with the boys compared to our daughters. It seemed that the boys were often prioritized, especially on days when their father was away. I realized that it was important for my husband to maintain his bond with his nephews, but I also wanted to ensure that our daughters had their fair share of quality time with him. In the end, I knew that finding a balance was key. It was essential for all the kids to have fun and feel valued, but I also wanted to make sure that my daughters didn't feel overshadowed. I hoped that by discussing this openly with my husband, we could come to a solution that worked for everyone involved. So I ask you all, was I in the wrong for wanting my husband to limit his time with his nephews to ensure our daughters didn't miss out? Or was I simply trying to advocate for my children's needs? It's a delicate balance, and I'm still figuring it out. I found myself in a bit of a dilemma recently, and I wanted to share my experience to see if I was in the wrong. My husband has two nephews who are quite energetic, and while I appreciate their enthusiasm, I noticed that our daughters were missing out on quality time with their dad when the boys were around. When my husband played with our daughters, their interactions were filled with joy and creativity. They would run around, engaging in unstructured play that allowed their imaginations to flourish. However, when the boys joined in, things took a different turn. The atmosphere became competitive, and my daughters often found themselves sidelined, opting to do their own thing instead. It was concerning to see that even they recognized the shift in dynamics. I had a conversation with my husband about this. I expressed my concern that he seemed to be neglecting our daughters during these play sessions. I suggested that he might need to find activities that everyone could enjoy together, or perhaps set some boundaries with the boys to ensure our daughters felt included. I couldn't help but wonder if there was an underlying issue, like the possibility that he had hoped for sons to engage in more sporty activities, but ended up with two wonderful daughters instead. Despite my worries, I knew my husband loved our girls deeply. They are truly daddy's girls, and that bond is something I cherish. I wanted to ensure they were getting the time and attention they deserved from him. One day, my husband planned to take the kids to the park, and I asked my older daughter if she wanted to go. To my surprise, she said no, even though she had been excited about it earlier. I shared this with my husband, and after some gentle prodding, my daughter admitted that she didn't want to go because of the boys. It turned out that she felt uncomfortable with their competitive nature, which made her hesitant to join in the fun. My husband, realizing the importance of this, decided to change the plan. He told the girls that the boys couldn't join them at the park, and suddenly, they were eager to go. It was heartwarming to see them light up at the prospect of spending quality time with their dad, free from the competitive energy of their cousins. As the days went by, I kept an eye on how things were progressing. My husband had initially planned to take the boys to the park separately, but fatigue got the better of him, and he had to cancel. However, he was determined to make it work. When he asked our oldest daughter about his plans for the following Friday, she was excited to go to the park, and he suggested inviting the boys along. The girls agreed, but I could sense that they weren't as enthusiastic as they were when it was just the three of them. After their outing, I asked my daughter how it went. She mentioned that while it was okay, her dad seemed to take on more of a referee role, which was different from the spontaneous play they enjoyed together. I understood what she meant. Their time together was supposed to be about fun and connection, not structured competition. I had planned to discuss this with my husband, but my daughter surprised me by bringing it up herself. One evening, while we were watching television, she asked him if they could skip inviting the cousins the next day. My husband, concerned about her feelings, asked why, and she simply said they didn't have as much fun when they were around. Taking her cue, I suggested to my husband that we could still invite the boys but have them come earlier so that he could spend some quality time with our daughters first. He agreed, and I took the boys out while my husband stayed back with the girls. In the end, it was a learning experience for all of us. My husband realized the importance of prioritizing his time with our daughters and ensuring they felt included and valued. I learned that sometimes it takes a gentle nudge and open communication to navigate family dynamics. We all want to create a loving environment where everyone feels cherished, and I'm hopeful that we're on the right path. Navigating family dynamics can be quite the challenge, especially when it comes to ensuring that everyone feels valued and included. Recently, I found myself in a situation that made me question whether I was being unreasonable in my expectations regarding my husband's time with his nephews. It all started when my husband began spending time with his sister's two sons. Initially, I thought it was a great idea for him to bond with them, and I even took them out for ice cream one day. The boys had a fantastic time, and my sister-in-law appreciated the break. However, as time went on, I noticed that our daughters were feeling a bit left out. They were missing out on their dad's attention while he was busy with their cousins. One day, my sister-in-law mentioned that the boys were willing to wait until my husband was free to hang out. She asked him about his schedule, but he seemed hesitant to explain the situation fully. I felt he should be honest about the fact that he was spending time with our daughters alone. But he thought it would be unfair to make our girls the focus of that conversation. After some back and forth, he decided to take our daughters out by themselves, and they were overjoyed. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that the boys were missing out too. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and we found ourselves at a family gathering for Thanksgiving. It was a lively event, with everyone in high spirits. My daughters were having a blast, playing with a beach ball, and my husband's uncle was praising them for their skills. In a moment of excitement, my 8-year-old bragged about how they had managed to keep the ball up for 14 bounces with their dad just the day before. That's when my sister-in-law started to piece things together. It became clear that my husband hadn't been entirely truthful about his schedule, and that he had been spending time with our daughters alone. This revelation led to an important conversation. My sister-in-law expressed that her boys were feeling the distance and sensed that my husband was pulling away. We explained that our daughters were feeling a bit neglected and that my husband had been trying to carve out special time for them. She argued that families should come together and that it would be beneficial for the girls to learn to share their dad. At that moment, I felt compelled to defend my daughters. I explained that it was perfectly normal for them to want their dad's undivided attention. They weren't fighting over him. They simply enjoyed their time together. My husband, ever the peacemaker, suggested that we should ensure the kids didn't start resenting each other. After all, they're cousins and should have a good relationship. In the end, my sister-in-law acknowledged our efforts and the challenges her family was facing with her husband being away for long periods. We discussed potential solutions, including enrolling her boys in a local soccer program to help them engage with other kids. She suggested that I send my daughters to her place instead, which I agreed to on days when my husband wasn't available. As it stands now, my husband has settled into a routine where he takes our daughters out alone on Tuesdays. And he also took all the kids out together on Fridays. He plans to continue this arrangement until our daughters feel comfortable playing with their cousins again. I can tell he feels a bit guilty about the situation, and I do too, as I genuinely care for the boys. However, seeing my daughters happy and thriving in this new setup has been incredibly rewarding. I'm grateful for the advice I received throughout this journey, and I hope that we can maintain this balance moving forward. Family is important, and finding a way for everyone to feel included is key to nurturing those relationships.